Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Vols. We have a whole lot to get into today, catching up from what we and myself really has missed from this past weekend. We got transfer portal visits. We had one commit, one class of 2023 decommits, another player in the transfer portal, plus all your questions. It's a loaded up Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome into it, your Tuesday edition of the show, Locked On Vols, and I am your host, Eric Kane. So glad that you guys elected to come back and join us here on Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough. It's been a really busy weekend for me. Appreciate you guys for your patience. Didn't have a show yesterday. I had a lot going on. A lot of you guys reached out to me. I got married over the weekend, so thank you to all those well wishes. Honeymooning in January, later on in January, so it's a busy week. Work. You had to come back and work this week, but we're excited to go to Cabo down in mid-January. We can't freaking wait for that. But to everybody that wished me and my new bride, congratulations. And well wishes, all that. We can't thank you enough for that. But hey, show goes on, baby. There's plenty to discuss. We're going to catch up on everything that I missed and maybe you have missed from over the weekend. And then in segments 2 and 3, we're going to get into your questions, all that and more right here for a Mailbag edition, Twitter Tuesday, Locked On Vols. Again, I'm your host. I work over at volquest.com. That's the On3 site for Tennessee. And of course, I host this podcast 5 days a week. Hey, we were the #1 rated Tennessee Volunteers podcast out there. I came out there, I tweeted it, I think it was on Saturday, I put it out there and kind of shared that news, and a lot of us in the Locked On family were awarded #1 in terms of their, team that they cover podcast in the country, and I think that's awesome. This is from FeedSpots. They put out a list of top 15 best Tennessee Volunteers podcasts each and every year, and for 2022, Locked On Vols was #1. And again, as I always say, literally could not do it without you guys. So I wanted to make that announcement. And thank you, as always, for your support of the show. 6K by Christmas Day. We're a little behind. We might extend that to New Year's Day, but let's go ahead and keep that up there on YouTube. If you would please just go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe. And of course, it's wherever you find your audio podcast as well. Okay, so plenty to discuss here for Tennessee football and the transfer portal. And in terms of recruiting 2023, first, a commit via the transfer portal. Tennessee gained the commit of Andrej Karic. He is an offensive tackle from Texas. He was a sophomore this past year, so he'll have multiple years to play. And he's 6'5", 306 pounds, and he's a little bit smaller. I know some of you guys were asking me questions why I said that Larry Johnson III, the junior college commit for the class of 2023, I think I said on another podcast that I view him more as a guard than I do a tackle. And a lot of people were kind of wondering why I said that. And again, this is me. I made that comment about Larry Johnson, having never seen him play, having never seen him in person. That was just a comment off the cuff. At 6'7", 365 pounds is what he's listed at. If you're north of 350, it's very difficult to play tackle in this offense. You can lose that weight. Darnell Wright lost that weight. He was like 355 plus at one point in time. I think it was when Heupel first came in that offseason in 2021. He dropped all the way down to 330. Also, Darnell Wright's a little bit of a different animal. I mean, he's going to be a mid-round draft pick, and he's really good. So it can be done. I'm just saying playing tackle in this offense at 350 plus is not impossible, but it's hard to do. So we'll see what Larry Johnson kind of translates into. I think that there's a lot there, and he carries that weight well because he has a 6'7" frame. But for a guy like Andrej Karic, I like his makeup. He's lighter, about 300 pounds. He can afford to put on some more weight. 6'5". I believe he was a 4-star rated prospect out of high school. He was a 4-star rated prospect out of high school, and he appeared in all 12 games this season, but he was a kind of a reserve player. There was a freshman, Kelvin Banks, that took that spot at right tackle, and so he was the second option there, likely on PAT and field goal teams and all that. But with Banks being a freshman, being beneath him in the cycle and playing over him, he decided to enter the transfer portal. He had a ton of offers and a ton of interest. He visited Tennessee over this weekend and made it official on Monday via his Instagram. Andrej Karic has committed to Tennessee. That means Tennessee now has 3 commits via the transfer portal, and Charles Campbell, a kicker from Indiana. You've got McAllen Castles, the tight end from UC Davis, and now you've got Andrej Karic, who is committed via an offensive tackle from Texas. So Tennessee did some work there over the weekend. Now, there is another offensive tackle commit that Tennessee is very much in on, and Tennessee covets very, very much. His name is A.J. Cornelius. He is the offensive tackle from Rhode Island. He stands in at about 6'6". Hold on, I'll get that officially here. He's at 6'4", 315 pounds. And this is really kind of the first time he's gone through the recruiting process. Again, I'm sure there are fine people up there at Rhode Island, but it's a bit of a different animal whenever Tennessee's involved and SEC teams are involved and your 4 finalists. Again, he's going to commit on Wednesday, said in that announcement. He'll commit on Wednesday at 6 o'clock Eastern time, and he will do that on his Facebook and Instagram pages. But it's coming down between Tennessee, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Oregon. He visited Nebraska and Oregon earlier on in this cycle. He visited Tennessee over the weekend, and he left Knoxville to go to Ohio State. Those are the 4 teams involved for A.J. Cornelius, and there's a lot to like here. I mean, whenever you're battling these prospects and these recruits and your transfers from the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States. I mean, that says a lot about where your program is right now if you're the University of Tennessee. So Tennessee very much has an offensive tackle committed in this class, would like to add another one, A.J. Cornelius. We'll see what he decides on Wednesday after coming off a visit over this weekend. So those are some transfer portal visits and stuff regarding Tennessee, especially on the offensive tackle. What about a guy who left Tennessee from the class of 2022? Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle from Florida. He was on the team as a true freshman in 2022, and he redshirted, so he has 4 years of eligibility remaining, a former 4-star. He entered the transfer portal on Monday, and he's a guy Tennessee kind of had to watch out for. I think Florida was coming in trying to, with the new recruiting staff and the new support staff and obviously the new head coach and Billy Napier, tried to sway him back to Florida, but he stayed committed to Tennessee, and he actually practiced for bowl practice in Knoxville last year as well. But he entered the transfer portal on Monday. Jordan Phillips, a former 4-star prospect for the University of Tennessee at defensive tackle. All right, so we got another one as well. Tennessee, a decommit from the class of 2023, and 4-star safety Sylvester Smith. I like Sylvester Smith. As you know, VolQuest.com. It's our old platform was at Rivals, new platform, having a blast over at On3 now. Rivals had him very highly rated. Some of the other programs had him kind of lower rated, but he was still, anywhere you look, I mean, he was a top 200 prospect, right? One of the better players in the state of Alabama. And that was always a name. He, along with Ricky Gibson, were always names that says, hey, Tennessee's got to watch out for whoever's going to be the new coach at Auburn, whoever's going to come in and try to turn that thing around. And so as soon as Hugh Freeze was hired, they started attacking some of the better prospects in the state of Alabama. Sylvester Smith was one of those guys. Interestingly enough, at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game for high school prospects, Sylvester Smith spoke to an On3 rep, and that On3 rep sent me the audio, and I wrote a story and put it up at VolQuest.com, and it was essentially Sylvester Smith saying, hey, I'm good with Tennessee. I plan on signing with Tennessee. Nothing has changed. Sure, there are other teams and programs who are reaching out to me, but my plan is to sign with Tennessee. That was last weekend. And it just kind of goes to show you how fast and how furious these things can change in recruiting. Justin Williams-Thomas was all but going to West Virginia, was a commit to West Virginia, and then Tennessee got him there in the last week or two. Tennessee got Tyree West on National Signing Day. Tennessee got James Pierce on National Signing Day. So all these things can move in a hurry the closer you get to National Signing Day. And Hugh Freeze and the Auburn staff had gotten the flip of Sylvester Smith, a 4-star prospect safety for Tennessee. I like Sylvester Smith. I really, really did. I liked him more than the other 2 commits at safety for Tennessee, and Jack Luttrell and John Slaughter. Tennessee now has 5 defensive back commits, 3 corners, and now 2 safeties. But Sylvester Smith does flip from Tennessee to Auburn. All right, so that's some football things that we might have missed throughout the weekend. Tennessee also a hard-fought basketball game coming up short on the road at number 9 Arizona. 75-70 was the final score. Again, defense, I think it's safe to say this Tennessee defense is really, really good. the Tennessee offense is still very much a work in progress. Zakai Ziegler had a really, really good game. Olivier Cumwall had a really, really good game. Those guys went 8 for 11 and 3 for 6 from three-point range. Those were Zakai Ziegler's numbers. Cumwall was 7 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 4 from three-point range. The rest of the team was 12 for 40 from the floor and 3 of 17 from three-point range. So Ziegler had a good game. Cumwall had a good game. But offensively, that was about all it was. Josiah Jordan-James didn't play in this basketball game as he continues to be in and out of the lineup with some knee soreness, which is really unfortunate. Tennessee's defense played well. It held Arizona to 17 points below its season average, but Tennessee does come up short. I think it's some growing pains, some learning lessons. It was a hard-fought game. Tennessee made quite a comeback and really almost won that thing on the road. But Tennessee beat Arizona last year on its home court. Arizona beats Tennessee this year on its home court at 75-70. So now Tennessee's what? 11-2, 10-2, something like that. Tennessee's still in good position because this defense is going to keep them in a lot of ball games, but they've got to find some answers offensively. There's no doubt about that. All right, so we got plenty more to get into right here on Locked On Vols, and can't wait to do that. We're going to take your questions in segments 2 and 3. But first, I'll remind you guys about a proud sponsor of this podcast. That is LinkedIn Jobs. Every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job, use the purple hashtag hiring frame to let LinkedIn spread the word about who you're trying to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and then ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus its leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Hey everybody, welcome back into it. It's your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. We take your questions, little Twitter Tuesday, every single Tuesday right here on the show. So appreciate you guys for getting them in there. I know I didn't really open it up a long time for you guys getting questions this week. Sorry. I've been a little bit busy. Had to also find a creative time to record on Monday, but we did get in about 8 of your questions. Really, really do appreciate that. We'll take more next week for sure. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel wants to know, with the surge of football, baseball, and the basketball teams, do we feel there could be an uptick in recruiting, even though we have a down year in the next couple because of the continued success, it'll stay strong? Okay, so I think what you're trying to say is even if Tennessee football takes a step back next year, which is going to be expected, you're losing the Blitnikoff Award winner, in my opinion, a Heisman finalist. It's Cedric Tillman, arguably one of the best players on the team. You're losing those guys. So, I mean, you're probably going to go back from 10 regular season wins to, maybe 8 or 9. That's a conversation for another day. But nonetheless, with the continued success of Tennessee all across the board with recruiting, will recruiting keep up? I think it will. I mean, Tennessee is in a really good spot right now. Per the On3 rankings, Tennessee's the top 10 team. Or it's actually number 11 right now nationally. It was a top 10 team. It jumped up to number 8, and then the decommit from Sylvester Smith still has 24 total commits, has 3 transfer target commits via the portal. I think that because Tennessee is such an attractive place, and it really helps too when you have guys like Josiah Jordan-James and guys like on the baseball team in years past, like Jordan Beck and Drew Gilbert, and of course the football team. And it's really just kind of like one place. It's all Vol. It's all Tennessee. It's a very attractable place. Plus, let's not lie here. It's a good place for name, image, and likeness opportunities here in Knoxville, Tennessee, because of the continued support and passion of this fan base. So. Even if Tennessee takes maybe a step back to, a couple wins last year or take away a couple wins from this year to next year in terms of a quote-unquote rebuilding year, I don't expect recruiting to slow down whatsoever. Again, what's that number in terms of wins for Tennessee in 2023? That is a episode for another day, but I don't expect it to be 10 because, again, you're losing so much. But I think recruiting will kind of stay where it's at. Daniel, appreciate the question there. Let's go to Taylor. In your mind, what from this football season was most consequential for the future of this program, either good or bad? Good question. Really good question. You can go a number of different areas in this, but I'm a glass half full guy. So why don't we say beating Alabama? I mean, 15 years is way too long to lose to your rival. You could also throw in Florida in that conversation. I know Tennessee beat Florida back in 2016, but I mean Tennessee's lost to Florida 16 of the last 17 years before this year. Tennessee lost to Alabama 15 straight years. Entering that October the 15th this year, the third Saturday in October. So for me, I would say it's Alabama because not only did you snap the streak, but you proved to the entire country that not only is Tennessee improved under Josh Heupel, but you're a national contender right now. I mean, I left Neyland Stadium that night once I finally got out of the mod from on the field when I was down there shooting video. I left Neyland Stadium that night saying, Tennessee could win a national championship this year. And I couldn't even fathom myself saying that back in August or July. Because to that point, Tennessee had beaten Florida. Tennessee got on the road, beat Pittsburgh. Tennessee had beaten Florida. Tennessee had stomped LSU on the road. And then you beat Alabama the way you beat, or not the way you beat Alabama. You won on last-second field goal. But you beat Alabama with the Heisman Trophy, reigning Heisman Trophy quarterback that looked all-world that day. I think that was the biggest thing because, number one, you stopped the streak. You beat your rival. You improved to, 6-0 at that point or whatever it was. But also, it proved to yourself and proved to people like me and a lot of people like you out there that Tennessee can win a national title right now. So for that reason alone, I'll say Alabama. I thought that was a really, really critical win for Tennessee this season, and I think it's one that can stick with Tennessee, moving forward for the years. All right, let's go to Adam Collins. My question is, how's married life? Congrats, my man. Adam, appreciate you, dude. It's been great. Been great so far. Glad to follow in guys like yours footsteps who got married a long time ago. Better late than never, right? Adam, old Carson Newman friend, listener of the show. Appreciate you, buddy. Let's go to Ethan. In your opinion, do you think we see Wesley Walker stick it out this upcoming season? I feel like we got a little clip of how good he can be. Yeah, I mean, I like Wesley Walker. I thought he should have played safety a whole lot more. Let's see what his role is for this Orange Bowl. Again, Tennessee's ride or die with McCullough and Flowers back there. Flowers did miss the last game of the regular season against Vanderbilt, but I believe he's going to be ready to go for the Orange Bowl. This will be his last Tennessee football game ever. It's hard to believe that he wouldn't start this game. I know Wesley Walker's played a ton at star position as well, but I think seeing what he did against Vanderbilt and seeing like potentially that could be what we roll out there, for the secondary for Tennessee next year. We'll see. I thought at one point in time maybe he wants to hit the transfer portal, but if you do that, I mean, you're looking at 3 different stops. When it's all said and done, he's got family here. He's from Tennessee, so as of right now, I think that he will stick around, and I think he'll be a big time player for Tennessee in the secondary next football season. All right, last one for this segment. We will go to Silos. Any word on the OC tight end coaching search? Are there any top candidates for tight end coach if Halsey gets promoted? When do you think Coach Josh Heupel will make that announcement? Dude, it's been really, really quiet on that front. I mean, it's been really quiet on that front. You went from, trying to hit the road recruiting, last little visit to 2023. Now you're into bowl practice, and you've got all that to worry about. You got National Signing Day this week. You got transfers coming in and out. I mean, I'm not saying Josh Heupel's not thought of it. I'm not saying Josh Heupel probably hadn't been working behind the scenes. I'm not saying Josh Heupel doesn't have his list or has spoken with people, but to my knowledge, it's been really, really quiet on this front. I would expect some type of announcement to come, maybe before the bowl game, maybe next week. But if not, probably after the bowl game because, signing day will be over with by that point. The bulk of your commitments out of the transfer portal will be done by that point. Not all of them, but the bulk will be done by that point. So check that. The Orange Bowl has already been played. Check that. It's like, okay, you're checking off all these things. It's like, okay, I need to go get a coach in now. So, we'll see. I don't think he's in any hurry right now. And I don't think that there's the urgency that would normally be there because, again, this is Josh Heupel's system. Now, I think Brent Hubb said this on the VolQuest pod last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. If Todd Monken left Georgia, it would be a little bit different because Kirby is not an offensive coach. You would have to come in and bring in, even if you had the same similar style of offense, you would still have to come in and find a guy to be new, different terminology and play calls and all that type of stuff. I mean, this is Josh Heupel's offense. So for him, he's very selective because this is his baby, but also like the urgency's not there if you're an offensive prospect or maybe an offensive target from the portal because it's like, I'm coming to play for Josh Heupel. Whoever he hires to call plays or coach tight ends will be calling or running the plays that are his. And again, Josh Heupel may call the plays, promote Joey Halsey, give him that tag, and then go hire a tight ends coach. I think that's likely the case in the course of action here. But that's why I don't think there's such an urgency plan right now. So we'll see exactly when that announcement's being made. I don't think he's in very much a hurry to make this call, but again, things can happen in the blink of an eye, so we will see. We'll continue to take your questions right here on Locked On Vols. That is coming up next right here on the show. But first, a statement from our friends over at the NHTSA. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every single state, even in states where marijuana is legal. This means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. And your friends can tell too. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think the law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving impaired? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're really not. Because bottom line, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high and you'll get a DUI paid for by the NHTSA. All right, guys, one more segment left. Twitter Tuesday. When you take over the show right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate all the questions you guys have already been sending in. Let's head on over to Alex's question. Who on the offensive side of the ball is most likely to hit the transfer portal after bowl game and or spring practice? It's a good question because it's ever evolving, right? Especially when you say after spring practice, because you can make it through this first window and someone you thought, maybe would enter the portal or whatever and didn't end up doing it. Maybe they're waiting on spring practice to see how those 15 practices go, how that month-long process is, and where they stack up at the end of the orange and white game. If they don't like where they are, they'll jump in the portal in that second window. If they like where they're at, then potentially they'll stay here. So, we'll see. Tennessee, as I mentioned, had Jordan Phillips into the transfer portal on Monday. I think there'll be some other guys who might wait until after the Orange Bowl to go ahead and jump in the portal. Haven't heard a whole lot of chatter about anybody, but you just kind of have to go and look at the roster and look at some of those guys who have multiple years left and look at some of those guys and where they've stacked up. I mean, again, haven't heard anything, but what's a guy like Walker Merrill wanting to do? I think he provides a lot. I think he's good in the slot. He's learned how to play outside receiver. He's come in and been productive, but he's been productive in blowout games, right? Had a couple of touchdowns earlier in the season, had a touchdown against Vanderbilt. With Tennessee really loving Chaz Nimrod on the outside, obviously squirrel wide in the slots, bringing in some other receivers that they're high on, like Nathan Laycock and potentially Cam Selden at wide receiver. Kind of where does Walker Merrill stack up? Maybe guys like him or some of these other guys who have already entered the transfer portal, I predicted would, like the Jimmies, Holiday, Callaway, Miles Campbell, who just never turned out here. So, we'll see. So in terms of offensive end, I mean, maybe a guy like Walker Merrill. I don't see any running back darting for the portal because they all play. Offensive line, I mean, what about some of these veterans on the offensive line, like a William Parker, like an RJ Perry? I think it's evident that those guys, to my knowledge, are probably never going to be every down players here at Tennessee. They're even different from guys like Dane Davis, who I think has an incredibly important role in this football team. He's started games. He's played big-time roles for Tennessee each of the past 2 years, but he's not in that every down five starting offensive lineman. Dane Davis has a huge role in this team. Ollie Lane is another one just like that. Jackson Lampley, I talk about that trio all the time. They're different than what William Parker and RJ Perry are. So what about some of those guys, the latter two, Parker and Perry? What do they decide to do? I mean, I just kind of look at it like that without hearing any rumblings or anything like that. Just kind of looking at who some of these veterans are on the team and how much they've played and do they think that there might be an opportunity moving forward. So, as always, we will have to see. Let's go to Brennan. Brennan says, could you see either Mincy or Crawford sliding over to play the right side next year to fill Darnell Wright's spot since they split time about right down the middle? Or do you see another starter coming in and stepping in? Well, Tennessee's obviously shown it's been active in the transfer portal trying to find an offensive tackle. With the commitment of Andrej, I forgot his name already. With the addition of Andrej Karic on Monday, is he going to come in and be an automatic starter? I don't know. Tennessee's also still after A.J. Cornelius, who set his commitment date for Wednesday at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So I think it's pretty evident Tennessee wants some more offensive tackles, but also there's only 3 offensive tackles on the roster right now who have ever seen any action, that being Gerald Mincy, J.J. Crawford, and Dane Davis. So Tennessee is very weak at offensive tackle, especially in terms of veteran experience. So I think that there's a need there. You need to go get depth no matter what, but also some of these guys can come in here and see what they got. Gerald Mincy, it was never a guarantee that he was going to be a starter for Tennessee, but he came in after an up and down spring because he dealt with some injury. He proved in battle, then he won that job in fall camp. And that job came down to the wire. I thought for the longest time J.J. Crawford was going to be the team's starting left tackle. And he played a lot, don't get me wrong. Again, we went over the numbers last week. According to Pro Football Focus, those guys split the left tackle spot in terms of snap count, like directly right down the middle almost. One was at 407, the other was at 405. So we will see. J.J. Crawford can play right tackle. He played right tackle in the Music City Bowl last year. He came in and spelled Cade Mays when he was injured, and he, along with Dane Davis, worked to fill in that gap on the right side in 2021. Gerald Mincy, to my knowledge, cannot play on the right side. He is only a left tackle. So can they split those 2 guys up and those 2 guys be your starting offensive tackles next year? It can happen, absolutely. Will the influx in Karic and potentially another offensive tackle provide some competition and something to think about over spring practice and fall camp? Absolutely. I think that one of the 2, Mincy and Crawford, will be a starter, potentially both of them, but there might be a new face in that starting 5, and lots to be seen there. Let's go to Josh. We got 2 more questions here. Josh wants to know, is it a good or bad that National Signing Day will be pretty anticlimactic? I always think it's going to be a good thing. Again, I know Tennessee had a decommit this week, and I said last week that as of that time, it looked like Tennessee was going to hold on to all of its commits. But again, things change. Things can change between now and Wednesday for sure. But I mean, Tennessee has 15 early enrollees that are already in bowl practices. All those guys will be announced at the same time on Wednesday. So much of the hay is already in the barn. This is so much different from what it used to be in terms of National Signing Day in February being like a national holiday. I know a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people miss that, and that's fair. I still think it's a good thing that Tennessee, it might be an anticlimactic signing day, because last year Tennessee was in on Tyree West. Tennessee was in on James Pierce. Tennessee was in on Justin Williams-Thomas down to the end. But it made for a pretty climactic National Signing Day. Tennessee's not just in some of those anymore. Tennessee got Aaron Carter last week in terms of the commit, and he's practicing on campus right now. That was pretty big. So in my opinion, I think it's a good thing. It's nothing to worry about. Hay's in the barn. You're moving on. These guys are already here and practicing and all that. But I do understand that it takes a little bit of the funness. Funness, is that a word? It takes a little bit of the fun away from a National Signing Day. But I think it's a good thing. Tennessee's going to finish with a good class, and Tennessee's going to add to its current roster via the transfer portal. Last one goes to Eric. Strong name. What is the best part of your job? Ooh, I love this question. I always say, hey, Tennessee football, recruiting, basketball, baseball, questions, team news, all that and more. We answer those right here on Locked On Vols. But if you guys want to ask me any question whatsoever, just holler at me. I know some college students and a lot of people at college age that want to jump in this industry have often shot me some DMs and asked me personal questions about how to go about this job. But anytime y'all want to know anything, just holler. I love what I do. I freaking love it. I, in my opinion, have the best job in the world because I get to get behind a camera, talk in front of a microphone about something I'm passionate about, and that's football. Something I've grown to love, that's recruiting. I get to do that every day, and I get to make money off that. And continuing to grow this show allows me to make even more money, and I love that. It's a huge time commitment. I could not do this without that monetary benefits. That's for sure. But I'm so blessed that I can and do that. I love writing. I love reporting. I call in the radio stations and do live reports every day during football season. Back when I was, doing morning radio, it was one of my other jobs. I did morning reports, and I reported on Tennessee football. It's a blast. I love to write columns and articles on what I think about a certain subject, and I love it all. But my favorite part, truly, my favorite part of doing all that stuff with VolQuest and Locked On Vols and all that is just keeping it simple. I do some of this work for VolQuest as well, but I love sitting behind a microphone, talking into that microphone, allowing my personality to come out. And hopefully by the end of a podcast or a live YouTube show or, a 2-minute drill, whatever the case may be, I hope that you weren't bored. I hope that you were entertained, but most importantly, I hope that you took something away from it. Now, are you going to learn something every single episode? I hope that's the case. I mean, I don't consider myself a teacher, but I hope you leave your Locked On Vols or your VolQuest experience by Eric Kane having learned a little bit more about the subject matter, which is Tennessee football recruiting. That's my hope. But also, I want to keep you coming back. I want to keep you entertained. I just want to continue this relationship. So sitting behind a microphone talking is my passion. I've thrown the camera in there in the last year, and I've grown to love that as well. I do TV work for Rivalry Thursday. We used to do a simulcast radio and television show at 99.1 The Sports Animal. I like being in front of the camera, but my passion is sitting behind a microphone, talking about football. I love it. And giving my opinions on football. It's just an absolute blast. So, Eric, thanks for asking that, man. It's a really, really good question. And again, strong name. That'll do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Every single weekday morning, except yesterday, for about 35 minutes. Get you up to date on the biggest news surrounding Tennessee football, Tennessee basketball, Tennessee recruiting. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Check out Locked On Sports Today. Game recaps, take of the day, all that and more. Make Locked On Sports Today your second listen right behind Locked On Vols. Don't forget 6K by Christmas Day. We got some work to do. 6K by Christmas Day. Like this video on YouTube and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Same time, same place. Let's do it tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.